Good morning. Welcome to Above the Stories. My name is Melinda, and things are kind of confused today. So let me tell you what happened. First of all, I have been sick this week, and I haven't, because it's been like a coughy, snotty sort of sick. I haven't really been able to film. I had planned to film my September wrap-up, September/third quarter wrap-up, to go out yesterday, which is Thursday, the 3rd of October. But I wasn't ready, voice, everything wise. So I said, fine, I'll just do this with my weekly wrap up. And then I was confused about when the booktube prize announcement video was going. Someone told me it was the 5th. First I thought it was the 1st. And then someone told me the 5th, and that was fine. And then I got an email saying it was the 4th. So I was like, that's great. I have my video ready. I scheduled it to go out the 4th, which would be today. And then I got another video saying it was the 5th. So that video is going out tomorrow at 10 a.m., which is an hour after the announcement video. This video, which normally comes out on Saturday, will be going up at some point on Friday after I finish editing it, because we do what we can do. So yes, sorry for all that confusion. I mean, you might not even notice, but it is confusing to me. Anyhow, as I said, I am doing my weekly, my monthly, and my quarterly wrap up all in one. I don't have much to report on this week because I have been sick most of the week. And I actually don't have much to report as far as monthly reading, because I only finished one book since my last wrap up, and I finished it in the month of September. I do expect to finish 2 books this afternoon, but this evening, but you will see them next week's wrap up. So it actually works really well to do all the wrap-ups together. And because this has the potential of being a kind of long video, I'm just gonna jump right into it. So basically, I say it's weekly wrap-up. There isn't that much. I will point out when I get to it, the book that I read this week that I haven't talked about, which would be the whole thing I'm wrapping up. Also, down below, I will list what I am currently reading as of the filming of this video, or as of I type up the description of this video, what I'm reading, so you can see what's currently going on. So let's talk about this month. So that was weekly. Let's talk about September. I read 13 books in September, which is right on track for my goals, but it's less than I have been reading. And that is and I thought I'd be reading a lot more, but that is because 2 600-page books really threw me off. And so, yes, if you've been following my channel, you know, September was kind of like oh my God, what did I just do sort of month. I had knowingly committed to a buddy read, which I was glad to do, for a 600-page book, which I thought would be easy to do over the month, and it was the book that never ended. And then I had a book out of the library through Libby on my Kindle, or on my Kobo. Nope, that one was on my Kindle. It doesn't matter. It was a digital book. And I started reading it, and I didn't realize till I was halfway through it that it was over 600 pages. So that all happened. So this was kind of a weird month. I did have one DNF, and that is The Power by Naomi Alderman. I started this. This was on my self-destruct stack for this year. Those are books I have to read this year or get rid of. So I gave it a try. I got about 50 pages in. I didn't know who anyone was, and I didn't care. So that was that. I was like, it's not worth it. And I am not going to go back to this one. It had its moment. Its moment's gone, and that's fine. It wasn't a book for me. But of the books I did finish, my average rating was 4, which is an A. I'm kind of getting away from the grade thing, because if you've watched my videos, you know I really struggle with how to talk about books in a sort of rating way, but I will get to that in a moment. So 4 was my average rating. Now, as for formats, 5 of them were print, 4 were ebook, 3 were an audiobook, and then 1 was a tandem, which was my Shakespeare play. I listened to it as I read it, so it was audio and print. And now I'm going to go through the genres, but of course I start with classics, because I do not consider classic to be a genre. It's not. It's a signifier. It's like young adult is not a genre. It tells you the audience. A classic tells you the age and the staying power of a book. But I did have 4 classics, and I define a classic as a book that's at least 50 years old and still in print, or is in print as of now. And so I had 4 of them. The first one was, and I have the very little stack here. The first one was Bartleby, the Scrivener by Herman Melville. This is a very short, I don't know if you would call this a novella or a short story. It's very short. But it was delightful. It was about a guy who, is asked to do something and he just at work and he's just like, I would prefer not to. And that whole thing. This book was actually referenced in a big book from last year, which was Tom Lake. So it is actually a delightful, but also a very sad. So it's delightfully sad, if that makes sense, kind of book. I enjoyed this. I expected to enjoy it, and I did enjoy it, but I did find it sadder than I thought it would be. The second one was a buddy read with Mariandria at Books and Mocodillos, and that was The Pearl by John Steinbeck. This is a parable. Many of you have read it in high school. I did not. I loved it. I love John Steinbeck. I have yet to read a John Steinbeck that's not a 5-star. So spoiler, that's a 5-star book for me. And then the next one was my Agatha Christie for the month, which is N or M. I'm going to talk about this. Well, let me talk about this one right now because it is a kind of a genre thing. This is not on my list. I left a genre off. These 2 books, I don't know, it's on my list, it's not on there, are time capsule books. So that's a book that's written in its present time. So it's written about now, but it is tied to its present time. So then when you read it in the future, it's a time capsule of that book. So this one is a time capsule of like 1850s New York. And this one is the one Agatha Christie, well, she wrote many books during World War II because that was sort of her saving grace, like that was her sanity. And she was writing like a demon, and there's stories like she wouldn't go down to a bomb shelter when they had air raids. She would just put a pillow over her head so she could keep writing, excuse me. So this was one of the books that she wrote. She wrote it in 1940 and it came out in 1941. It's also the only book she wrote that directly talks about World War II. And because it was written in 1940, it talks about what's going on in 1940 in World War II. So we don't know. This is a book you're reading. You don't know who wins World War II because the ending the war is still going when it was written. So when I come down to my genres, again, these I both put as time capsule. I kind of debated where to put this one because I tried to just put them in one genre. Technically, this is a thriller. I decided to keep it as a time capsule book because I think that its impact, it's better as a time capsule. It's more impactful as a time capsule book than it is as a thriller book. This is also a Tommy and Tuppence book. I did enjoy it more than I expected to enjoy a Tommy and Tuppence book because Tommy and Tuppence are best in small doses for me. So that was classic number 3. And classic number 4 was Twelfth Night by William Shakespeare. I finished this right under, it just was a weird month and I didn't get to this to the end of the month. This is my favorite Shakespeare play so far. Love this, love it, love it, love it. And I'm gonna go see a production of it in December, which will be the second time I've seen a live production of it. So if you, I will link my little Wednesdays with Will video where I talk about this one and you can go see, I'll talk more about it. As again, trying to keep this short. So besides time capsule, which didn't make it on my list, I had 3 historical fiction, 3 memoir, 1 science fiction, 1 contemporary fiction, which is sort of, I don't like the term literary fiction because I think all writing is literary. So this is sort of like, it's a book that takes place now as opposed to a book that takes place in a historical period. But some people would call this a literary fiction. 1 horror, 1 mystery, and 1 play. Now we're going to get into ratings. Or not ratings. So I had, I was doing star ratings and then I was doing letter ratings, and I still do star ratings for my own purpose. But as far as talking about books, a rating doesn't convey what I want to say about the book. So I have basically divided my books up into categories. One is up in the air, which is, I don't know what to think about it. And that's really where don't take a rating farther. Don't really consider what I rated. If you follow me on Goodreads or Storygraph, ignore my rating on it because I had to put something in there. It's most likely a 3 because I don't know what to call it. Up in the air is like, I don't know what to think of this. Not recommended, obvious. Then recommended, which is like, yeah, I would recommend this to some people, or I recommend it with caveats. It's not a perfect book, but you know, it was good. You know, it may have been really good for me. So it might be a really highly rated book for me, but it's not something that I would widely recommend. You know, it's just not a widely recommended book. And then there's highly recommended, which is like, yes, read this book. And then I do 5 stars, which is an all-time favorite book. So I had one up in the air book this month, and that was my big buddy read, which was A Prayer for Owen Meany by John Irving. So I thought I had read this book before, and I think I had read most of the book before. I remember, and it was like 20 years ago that I read this book. I don't know if I finished it, let's put it that way, because there comes a point where I reached a point in the book where I realized I had remembered something differently, but then I didn't remember anything else after it. And I think I may have quit reading it at that point, the first time I read it. So anyway, this was a buddy read with Michelle and Michelle Lynn Reads, Becca at Books and Bougeot, and Kim at Kim's Book Life. We're trying to do it, but things happened in their lives and they couldn't. So it was just Michelle and I. So the reason this book is up in the air is because it's one of those books that when it is good, it is so fantastic, but it's not always good. And I don't know if the good outweighs the not good. And when I say not good, I don't necessarily mean bad. I mean, there's issues with it. There are scenes in this book that are just burned in my memory that I will never forget. They are so well done. And I don't want to get into what they are because they're kind of, well, one is not a spoiler. One is, so the basis of this book is there's 2 friends. There's Johnny Wheelwright and Owen Meany. And Owen is a strange little kid, literally. They don't really say what's going on with him. Like, does he have dwarfism or whatever? But he is small. And he has like a weird voice that never changes, and it's high and squeaky. That, in fact, when his dialogue is written in the book, it's written in all caps. But these 2 are friends, and something happens. This is basically Owen feels that he's the instrument of Johnny's mother's death, and you'll see what it is if you read the book. So it's the funeral for Johnny's mother. It was just like, so it was like I was reading this, and it's like, I'm not crying, I'm just shooketh. It's so effective. And there's a number of places in the book that's like that. Just excellence in writing. But also, there are things that don't need to be in this book. So the majority of this book is historical fiction. It starts when these boys are young, so like in the 40s, and it goes into the late 60s. But then there's also a present day section, which is the present day is like 1987. This book came out in like 1989, I think. So it was present as to when it was written. And a lot of that deals with John as an adult, you know, and his life and what he's doing and what's going on, you know, his faith, which faith plays a really big part in this book. And that part I found really interesting. But also his feelings about things that are happening in U.S. government, and he's very judgmental about it. So what's going on is the Iran-Contra affair. And I was in high school when that happened. I didn't pay close attention. But it is very clear to the character Johnny that this is the worst thing that could ever happen. Like, this is horrible. This is just destruction, shows the rot in the country and all this. And I'm reading it thinking, well, isn't that cute? Because, boy, let me tell you what happens 30-some years later. So there is a danger. And so obviously John Irving doesn't have a crystal ball. He didn't know what was going to happen 2016 on. He didn't know. Like, no. But I do think as a writer, you should recognize that when you're doing that thing where you're writing about the present day, and you're in some ways defining it as the worst or doing something that defines it in an absolute, that has a danger of not aging well. And that really happened here. And so that really took me out. Plus, the rest of the stuff that happens when Johnny's an adult, I didn't care about. It didn't need to be there. And when you have a 600+ page book, I feel like you need to earn every page of that book. And I think you probably need to earn every page of any book, but it is very annoying. Like, if you're reading a 300-page book and there's stuff in there that doesn't really fit, you're like, well, okay, whatever. But if you're 600 pages in there's a lot of stuff that you feel doesn't even need to be in this book that really has no impact on the book, which is true, it doesn't. It gets really infuriating. So I don't know what to think about this book. I'm not recommending it, and I'm not recommending it. It's up in the air. There you go. I don't have any books I wouldn't recommend this month, so that's good. Now, as for my recommended, now these are either ones that I would recommend to certain people, or I recommend them with caveats. They're not widely recommended. The first one is Light from Uncommon Stars by Ryka Aoki. Now, I enjoyed this, but it's fantasy and science fiction. It is very much in both genres. And both of those genres are not ones that I'm super comfortable with. I don't read a lot in those genres. I listened to this. I thought the audio was really good, but the audio allowed me to kind of mentally skip over the things that maybe weren't in my comfort zone. Now, Alex at Frank Fiction recently read this book, and I enjoyed it because of the experience, but she had a different experience. She is someone who does read science fiction and fantasy, and I think her thoughts are very valid. So first of all, I would say get this book on audio, because there are things that she mentioned. I will say, to spoil her video a little bit, one thing she mentions is that there are a lot of typos in this book. And you don't notice those in an audiobook. So that's one reason why I'd go audio. But I think that if you're interested in this book, and especially if you are someone who reads science fiction and fantasy, go check out her video, and I'll link it down below. The next book I have is A Long Petal of the Sea by Isabel Allende. This is a book I read from my library book club. And this is a book that I would recommend to someone who wants to read, who's very interested in the what happened historical part of the Chilean coup and the Spanish Civil War. Because I think that, like, the what happened is very well explained and very well conveyed. I don't think it's a well-written story, though. I thought it was a book that was all tell and no show. So it was not my favorite Allende. That's kind of my thing. Now, and the reason I kind of put it here is that I was a minority in my book club. Most people really liked it. They were hardcore Allende fans, and I've only ever read one of the Isabel Allende, and that was Zorro, which I loved. So yeah, I would, I don't know. I think this is a mileage may vary book. It didn't go very far with me, although I do recognize the pluses with this book. I just didn't feel it was a well-written book. Okay, I'm sorry this video is so jumpy, but I am coughing a lot. So, okay, my next book, which is in the recommended, is The September House by Clarissa Orlando. So this book comes highly recommended. People love this book. I put it here because I didn't love it. I enjoyed it. I liked it. I didn't love it. I think there's really two reasons for that. One is a few months ago, I read Diavola by Jennifer Marie Thorne, which is a better haunted house book. So it failed in comparison. I would just be honest. If you like September House and you haven't read Diavola, go get a copy of that book, because that book's awesome. Otherwise, but I did enjoy it for what it was. I just felt like it took a while to define what it actually was. I think it says some important things. I think it's an entertaining book. I was a little frustrated at the beginning because I was like, what kind of book is this? Again, though, I seem to be in the minority on this. So I enjoyed it. I just didn't love it. So that's why it's here. Okay, the next one is another audiobook that I listened to, which is A Well-Trained Wife, My Escape from Christian Patriarchy by Tia Levings. I didn't know, I really struggled between putting this in recommended and highly recommended. And the reason I put it here is because I felt like it treaded water in the beginning and at the end. This is a very propulsive story. This woman was raised in the Southern Baptist church. She married as she was expected to do, but her husband, who clearly suffered from some mental health issues, kept pulling him into more and more fringy churches, and really bought into Christian nationalism, Christian patriarchy. And her experience in her marriage is horrific. It is absolutely horrific. And I think it's an important book to read because I think it explains a lot of some of the things that are going on in our political landscape right now. And if you follow her on social media, she talks about that. However, I felt starting it, it took a little while to get those engines going at the beginning. And then at the end, and this is not a spoiler because she says my escape from Christian patriarchy, so you know she escapes. and her recovery is a big part of that, which needs to be there, but I do feel she started treading water in parts of that. So I kind of felt like the brakes went on. Not a perfect, but I think a worthwhile read. I don't know if I would recommend this on audio or reading it. The reason I say that is I didn't really enjoy her voice. She did fine reading it. I didn't enjoy her voice as much. Just the timbre of her voice. That might just be a me thing, but there you go. My next one, I'm not going to talk about much because I just talked about it, and that's NRM by Agatha Christie. The reason why I put it here is I don't think it's a great thriller. I kind of knew exactly what was going on pretty early, but I liked it better than a lot of, Tommy and Tuppence, it's very different from The Secret Adversary. It's not as madcap as that, or as its short stories. So it has toned down a bit, but you still have some of that Tommy and Tuppence charm. I just didn't, I just saw the end kind of coming. I saw the solution coming a mile away, but very interesting from the World War II point of view, which is why I put it in genres under time capsule and not under thriller. And then finally, I have a book, another one that I really struggled putting it between recommended and highly recommended. And I'm still not sure, which is why it's last, and not just because I read it last. Why it's last, because I really don't know. It's The Bridge. And this is Darkfire by C.J. Sansom. This is the second in the Matthew Shardlake series. A lot of people told me they love the second one, that's their favorite. I liked it. I really did enjoy it, but I do actually prefer the first one. Structurally, just for structural issues, there are basically two mysteries going on in this book, and I felt like they needed to intertwine more than they really did. And I always would feel a little resentful when we would pull away from one to go to the other. That's my only complaint with this book. What I love about this series and why I'm going to continue reading this series is that CJ Sansom does I think the mysteries are good. I am enjoying this series, so I don't want to say that the mysteries are not good, but my real draw to them is that CJ Sansom does such a fantastic job bringing Tudor England to life. The details are so wonderful. He knows his stuff, or he knew his stuff, unfortunately. Definitely. If you like historical fiction or historical mystery, definitely pick up this series, especially if you're interested in Tudor England, because most writing about Tudor England is about the royal family, and this is not. So yeah, really enjoyed that one. And I put it in the recommended just because it's, I don't know, maybe it should have gone in highly recommended. It's somewhere between the two. Now I'm to my highly recommended books, and I have 3 of them here, and I actually have all 3 of them right here, which is nice. I've talked about the first one, Bartleby the Scrivener. It's, most people find this, if you're looking for this, you're most likely going to find it in a short story collection. I just happened upon this nice little volume at Powell's last October, so I bought it for this year's Shorty September, and it's one of my few shorties. I just realized I forgot to say what I did for Shorty September, but that's okay, because most of my books were these long books. Recommend it. It's very readable. If you've been scared by Moby Dick, or you're intimidated because of Moby Dick, don't. Short, but also I think just more readable than Moby Dick. And then this was another buddy read, and this buddy read was with Angelia at Read and Reread, and this is Fire Exit by Morgan Talty. So this tells the story of a man named Charles who is not native. He's not indigenous, but he was raised on the Penobscot Reservation in Maine because his mother married a member of the tribe. But because he is not native, once he turned 18, he had to move off the reservation. He couldn't live on the reservation. So he lives right outside the reservation, and he lives by a river, and he looks over the river at this other house that he watches. And the reason he does is because his daughter is over there. She doesn't know that he's his father. And he's decided all of a sudden that he's going to tell her. This book is sad. It is just sad. Yeah, sad things happen, but it's not so much that sad things happen. It's more that it's just a sad book. So don't read it if you're feeling down. I would say that, but it's so beautiful. If you have dealt with someone who had dementia, and that's a little trigger for you, big warning, because that does happen to our main character. His mother suffers from it, and Morgan Talty has clearly dealt with that in real life because he knows what he's talking about, and it's hard to read. Both Angelia and I have dealt with that with parents. She with her mother and mother-in-law, and me with my mother. So it was hard for both of us to read, but it was done really well. It was surprisingly propulsive for what it was. This is not a book you think would be something you couldn't put down. But this one really was. We flew through this book because we just couldn't stop reading it. Now, both of us had read Night of the Living Rez, which was his debut as a short story collection, and is also in the same universe as this, because there are things in that book that are referenced in this book. And there might be things in this book that are referenced in that book. I don't know. Sorry, had to cough again. Angelia preferred Night of the Living Rez. I preferred Fire Exit. However, I have decided that I'm going to reread Night of the Living Rez for Remember December because she had a better memory of it than I did. And I think maybe having this might help me. And I didn't dislike Night of the Living Rez. My thing with Night of the Living Rez was I thought it should be a novel, which here you have your novel. It might work better for me now that I've read this. But really loved this book. And then my final highly recommended is one, again, not going to talk about much because I have a whole video, Twelfth Night by William Shakespeare. That was my play for this month. And if you're interested in following along with the Bard Room and our reading project, October's is The Tempest. All right, now let me get down my 5-star books. And I have 2 I'm going to talk about. The first one is The Pearl by John Steinbeck, which I already spoke about. Loved it. The other one was this one, Books and Islands of Ojibwe Country by Louise Erdrich, Traveling to the Land of My Ancestors. So this is a republished version of this book. Apparently this came out a while ago because there is an afterword added onto this that's like over 10 years later. So do read that because it is very much part. Like sometimes people say afterword and don't read it. This one you really need to read the afterword because it does really bring everything full circle. But basically the gist of this is Louise Erdrich has the real person. This is nonfiction. She is going to meet the father of her late in life baby. So she has the baby with her. She has teenage daughters, but she also has this late life baby. And she's going to go meet the father, who's very much into indigenous culture. I think he's like a medicine man in the Ojibwe tradition. But they're going up to this area, Lake of the Woods in the Boundary Waters, that is very significant to the tribe. So a lot of this is a really good explanation of their spiritual beliefs and their way of life and how it's being preserved. And I find that very interesting anyway. Really, I do really find that interesting. But what really sold me on this book is that she brought me there. She brought me there. This book brought me there. The way she describes everything, you're there. You're there in the canoe with them. You're climbing up the rocks with them. Wonderful. Now, Louise Erdrich is one of those authors who I love and can't do any wrong in my eyes. So it's not a surprise that I would like this book. I didn't know if I would be a 5-star book for me, so I was surprised by that. But it only took me a couple days to read. Probably wouldn't have taken me even that long, except I was reading two 600-page books. But really just love this book. And this is one that I will pick up again. As I've said before, I have family that summers in Minnesota, not in that part of Minnesota, but still in Minnesota. This is a book that I might bring along when we go to a road trip to go visit them, just to kind of get me in the mood, because it's just wonderful. So those are my 5 stars. Now, as for read-along events, again, as I mentioned, I totally forgot to write Shorty September down in there. And I had great plans for Shorty September, but my 600-page books, kind of messed that up. But I did have Bartleby the Scrivener. I had Books and Islands. Depending on how you define a shorty, I think both Fire Exit and N and M fall into that. So I did get some. But the other one is the Shake-Tember, which kind of goes in with the Bard Room because we chose our play this month. Normally I pull it out of a tin, but this month we chose our play from the Shake-Tember selections, which was Twelfth Night. So I was very happy because I love this play. So that was for our Shake-Tember. I would have read more Shake-Tember. I have been reading my sonnets, so there's that too. But 600-page books. That's all I have to say. And then as for buddy reads, I've already talked about them. I did 3. I left off Fire Exit. Fire Exit by Morgan Talty with Angelia Read It Reread. The Pearl by John Steinbeck with Mariandria at Books of Bocadillos, and A Prayer for Owen Meany with Michelle at Michelle Lynn Reads. So let's go into my goals. Now I always do my yearly stats, but that kind of goes into the quarterly goals. And September is the end of the third quarter. So, as you know, I had 10 goals, and I did remove one, and I will get to that one. And I had previously completed one. So the first one, and I'll get to that one too. The first one was read at least 165 books. Now, I know there's a discussion on whether or not you should set these book goals, and I think to each their own. I just kind of set like what I kind of think I should read a year. I don't try to push myself anymore. I just, I try to stay on track. And so this year, as of September 30th, I had read 144 books, which is ahead by 20 of where I should be at this time of the year. So that's great. And now let's hold on to that being great, because the rest is not great. The second one is have my owned TBR number to be less than it was on December 30th, 2023, which was 800. So I need 828 or less owned books, and I'm at 152, which is up by 23. I guess I might be able to get that down by the end of the year. I don't think it's likely. It's possible, but unlikely. Let's put it that way. The only way I could really see that happening is if I did a major unhaul. And I don't have books really that I want to unhaul at this point. So I don't have a lot of hope for that one. Okay, my next one is 35% of my books by own voices authors. So this is an author of a marginalized community writing about their own experience. I'm currently at 27.1%, and I don't know at this point if I can get it up to 35. I will continue to try. It might be that I just set 35 too high. That might be a goal that's just too high. So we'll do what I can and see where I end up. And then maybe for next year, I'll change that goal a bit to something a little more that's still a bit of a stretch, but more realistic. Number 4, I am doing great on, which is at least 15 of my books being nonfiction. I am at 28.4%. So I'm doing well on that one. And number 5, I want less than 50% of my books to be written by authors from the United States. I am currently right at 50%. So this is one I can easily just get under 50%, because I'm right there at the moment. I think I should be able to meet that one. The next one, probably not going to meet, and that is a hard one, and I wrote this badly. I wrote this really badly, and so even the way it's written, I think I've already not met it, but we'll see. Read 75% of my 2024 Book of the Month books within 3 months. The within 3 months part is gone. Like I that was a stupid thing for me to add on, because it's hard for me to track that. But just 75% of my 2024 books. So I have so far received 14 Book of the Month books. I have read 4 and DNF'd 1, and that is not, I don't know what the percentage is, but it's not 75%. So that looks really hard for me to meet. The 7th goal is the one I removed, which is to cut my NetGalley queue by at least 10 books. I deleted that because I deleted NetGalley. NetGalley and I are not friends. And we were in a toxic relationship, so I ended it. Number 8. This one's going to be a little hard. Let me get to it. Read 300 new to me short stories this year. So as of the end of September, I had read 196, which is 29 below where I should have been at that point. Now, I would have been a lot closer, except, sorry, I had to cough again. I should have been closer, but because of the 600 book situation, I ended up having to put the short story collection I had been reading this month aside. So I read books at the beginning and at the end of September, but in the middle of September, because I just was trying to juggle my reading, I didn't read any. I don't know if I'm going to hit that 300 mark, but I am going to I'm going to go see what I can do. And this just might be a goal that I recycle for next year, because I do think it's a doable goal. I just need to be a little more careful about it. And then the next one I completed in Q1, which was Read or Listen to The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. I read it. That's all I'm going to say about it, and then finally, my 10th goal is now complete, which is read at least one book by reread, because I've read them all already. Reread at least one book by Jane Austen. If you follow this channel, I have a difficult relationship with Jane Austen. I read all of her books in college and didn't like them. But I'm giving her another try outside of academia, just to read for my own. I don't have to write an essay about it. I don't have to discuss it. I just have to read it and enjoy it. So for Jane Austen July, I read Persuasion. I chose that one for two reasons. One, I didn't remember much about it. And two, I did know it was a second chance romance, which is a trope that I do like when I read romance. I liked it. Still, I wouldn't call me a Jane Austen girly yet, but it was okay. I read it. I enjoyed the experience of reading it. It did not blow me away. There you go. But it's complete. So I went from 10 goals to 7 goals now. And I might actually meet a couple of them, but we'll see. So I will check in again on this on January to tell you how I went and also to reveal my 2025 goals. And my voice is giving out, and I have a lot of videos to record today because this month at some point, and I don't know when because it's all up in the air because of weather, but we're having our roof replaced. So I don't know when that's going to be, but I'm pretty sure I won't be able to film things when it's happening. So I'm trying to film as much as I can now. So that I can just put them in and not worry about that. Anyway, I'm about to sneeze, so I'm going to call it. Like, subscribe, all that, and I will see you in the next video, hopefully not coughing as much. Bye.